In parts of Kerala today, there is a brutal ultimatum for thieves. If someone steals from you, you don't go to the police. You perform a ritual called velamkudi, and the thief is given exactly 41 days to return the property. If they refuse, legend says they and their entire family will begin vomiting blood until they die. This ritual is attributed to Puliyampilli Namburi, a 16th century mystic from Kozhikode. Namburi belonged to the absolute highest tier of the orthodox Brahmin elite. He was expected to live a life of perfect ritual purity, yet he maintained a scandalous double life that broke almost every social rule of his era. His story follows a man who claimed to operate entirely outside the moral and social constraints of his time, testing the friction between a rigid human world and a much more volatile spiritual authority. In public, Puliyampilli Namburi was the picture of an orthodox Brahmin. His status meant he was treated with immense reverence, required to observe strict rituals, and kept entirely isolated from anything his caste deemed impure. But in secret, he was a Shakta. This is a practitioner of an intense, hidden form of goddess worship that deliberately defies mainstream religious boundaries. This diagram represents 16th century orthodoxy. To maintain elite status, Brahmins were strictly vegetarian and prohibited from intoxicating substances. Purity laws were absolute. Yet Namburi's secret rituals required the opposite, offering meat and alcohol to the goddess and consuming the liquor himself to achieve altered states. The local community began to whisper about his habits. They wanted to excommunicate him and strip him of his status. But they had a logistical problem. Without physical evidence of him breaking the rules, they couldn't touch him. They finally saw their chance on a Friday, ambushing Namburi on the road while he was carrying a large clay pot full of liquor. They forced him to open it in front of a crowd, but when he removed the lid, the alcohol was gone. The pot was completely filled with ordinary betel nuts. He walked away untouched. While this public escape silenced his critics and appeared to prove he had divine protection, it secretly planted a dangerous idea in his head that he was invincible. The humiliated priests refused to let the issue go. They bypassed local authorities and went straight to the regional king, demanding a trap that Namburi couldn't trick his way out of. They chose their timing perfectly. They planned the sting for Karkigaka Vavu, the dark phase of the new moon. On this specific night, the sky is pitch black, making any supernatural illusion nearly impossible to hide. The king dispatched a messenger to Namburi's home late at night. The messenger arrived to find the mystic deep in his secret rituals, heavily intoxicated and barely conscious. Instead of making an excuse, Namburi sent a message back to the king. He promised he would come to the palace, but only when the moonlight appears. He had just guaranteed an astronomical impossibility. A drunk man had told the regional monarch to wait for a moon that wasn't there, boxing himself into a corner with no obvious way out. Back at the royal palace, the orthodox priests stayed awake for hours. They were ready to watch Namburi step out into the total darkness and face absolute ruin. But Namburi didn't step into darkness. According to the accounts, to save her devotee from humiliation, the goddess lifted her glowing earring into the sky. Namburi walked to the palace bathed in the light of a fabricated full moon. The king was awestruck, showering Namburi with gifts, while the plotting priests were left with a total, crushing defeat. He had won completely, but this victory convinced him that he owned the goddess's favor. He believed her power belonged exclusively to him, and that ego set the stage for his downfall. In the years that followed, Namburi traveled as a highly sought-after exorcist. He grew accustomed to the goddess accompanying him on every job, treating her less like a deity and more like an obedient servant. One night, walking back from a ritual, he looked behind him and realized he was entirely alone. The goddess had vanished. Confused, he retraced his steps through the dark paths. He eventually found her, but she wasn't at a grand temple. She was sitting inside the crude hut of a parian, a man from one of the lowest, most marginalized castes. Namburi watched as the man offered her basic, unrefined items, playing simple beats without any formal religious training. All of Namburi's ingrained caste prejudice flared up. He confronted the goddess, scolding her for accepting impure worship, that lacked proper Brahminical mantras. The ultimate irony was that Namburi had built his own legend on breaking the orthodox rules. Yet when someone below his social rank tried to worship, he suddenly demanded strict, formal purity. The goddess gave him a sharp rebuke. She explained that she valued the unvarnished, pure devotion of the man in the hut far more than the technical perfection or social status of an elite priest. Because he failed to understand this, she stripped him of his ability to ever see her physical form again. He lived the rest of his short life as a humbled man. That impartial nature is exactly why people still invoke him today to curse thieves. In Kerala, they call Puliyampilli Namburi a Kayam sword, a weapon that is sharp on both edges, cutting down anyone who crosses the line, regardless of their status. We often expect our historical figures to be flawless saints. His story survives as a warning. The social hierarchies and purity laws we build to separate ourselves hold zero weight when it comes to actual devotion.